What's up, guys? PK23 here, and I'm going to be giving my final thoughts on the game Titanfall. It's been a good run, about a year and a half. Awesome game, but Halo 5 is going to be coming out in a few days now, and I think it's about time Titanfall gets laid to rest. The game is not as active as it used to be, and I think most people are ready to move on from it. That the few that remain. So I'm just going to be giving my thoughts on it and what I think can be improved on for the sequel. So my overall opinion, I love the game, and it's pretty much all thanks to the mechanics, both the movement mechanics and the shooting mechanics. What we have here is a masterpiece in terms of innovative maneuvering around the map with the wall running, the bunny hop, and the bunny hopping, and solid shooting as well. Kill times are right where they should be, not too slow, not too fast. Still pretty good, still pretty fast for fun, quick kill times when you're a pilot. And the Titans are pretty chunky and meaty, and can take a lot of punishment, which is good for a giant robot. So I think all that's right where it should be. Unfortunately, that's about all I can say in terms of extreme positives about the game. There are quite a few issues holding it that, in my opinion, held it back from being more widely adopted and recognized as the fantastic game that it is. And I'm going to go over some of them. So first up, we have pilot balance and some of the loadouts. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I've already gone into detail in other videos on what the best weapons are to use. But suffice it to say, there were not enough primary weapons to tide over the more casual gamer. And I'm going to be speaking from a place of someone who plays, for competition, who only uses the best of the best loadout and stuff. But I recognize that you can't have that community without a baseline normal community that just plays the game in public matches for fun. Because if you don't have enough people, you don't have a big enough pool of people to pull from to get new competitive players, and then everything just gets stale. So it's easy to just say competitive this, competitive that, but you need to pay attention to the game as a whole as well. And in that sense, Titanfall didn't really deliver. Not enough weapons, which I'm okay. I personally was okay with the archetypal design philosophy when it came to the weapons, but throwing some weapon clones in there wouldn't have hurt the game for me, and it would have helped the game be a lot more fun and give a lot more replay value for other players. Let's see, some of the abilities, like tactical abilities, I feel like Stim was much better than the other two. They should have done what Call of Duty did and split Stim into either faster movement or health regen. Look at the ordnance. Immediately, the ordnances are all super powerful, a little bit more powerful than they should be, with the exception of the frag grenade. So toning down the ordnance would probably help the game too. The kits, tier 1 kit was pretty okay, some solid options in there, but the tier 2 kit, there's nothing really exciting in there. I mean, I picked Warpfall Transmitter because I think it's the best. I think Mini Detector is also viable, but if I had to play without tier 2 kit, I wouldn't be losing sleep over it. And you shouldn't really have something in a game like this that's about, with created class and stuff. You shouldn't have an entire slot that makes you think, well, whatever, I'll just pick up anything. You should be excited about what you're adding to your class, and the game doesn't deliver there. Moving on to Titans. Now, with the pilots, I thought they did an okay job, but with the Titans, they did a worse job in terms of balancing. Starting off with the chassis, the Atlas just is such a perfect mix between sturdiness and mobility that it's kind of hard not to pick it. But I have kind of what I think is kind of a unique solution, and it draws from Pokemon of all things. If anybody is familiar with Pokemon Showdown, it's an online simulator that lets you create a custom Pokemon team from scratch. And how that works is that there are sliders controlling certain stats. I think they should do that with the Titan chassis too. Instead of just having 3 set Titans with certain amounts of hit points and speed and shields and stuff like that, there should be different sliders for different attributes of the Titans. So if you wanted to stack up, so if you wanted a Titan like the Ogre and you wanted to just stack up completely on health at the obviously there would be a shared point value so that you couldn't just max out all the bars. But if you wanted to like max out health and not put a lot of points into your movement speed, you could do that. Or you could do the opposite. You could put a lot of points into your movement speed at the expense of shields or damage or something a robust system. And then that would also open up the Titan customization too. Rather than having only 3 aesthetic builds that are tied to the stats of the Titans, you could make the Titans look however you want them to look. So I think that'd be a pretty neat system. But that's kind of my opinion on the chassis. Primary weapon balance was pretty bad. Of the 6 weapons, there are only 3 that I would say are good, and of the 3 that are good, there's one that's like extremely great, which is the arc cannon. Again, I've gone over why it's good, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. I'm also not going to spend too much time on the tactical abilities or ordnance, just because they've been done to death in other videos and in my own videos. But I think cluster missile was way too good for what it was, and that kind of limited people's decisions. And I think going to the kits, we had kind of a similar thing. Really the choice was between Big Punch and Core Accelerator for Tier 2 kit. And for Tier 1 kit, you had a little more options. The only option I don't think is viable is Dash Quick Charger. So on that front, kind of like with the pilots, Tier 1 kit gets a pass, Tier 2 kit gets a fail. But at least the Tier 2 kit for the Titans is actually useful. Okay, so moving on from the actual class loadouts, which is important. And I think it's important to note that there were limited options, and the options they did have were not balanced very carefully. And that, I think, really hurt the game in terms of longevity. Hopefully that's something they can improve upon in Titanfall 2 with added weapons and better balancing. Maybe they can bring in some players, kind of like what 343 is doing with Halo 5. Obviously, there aren't pro Titanfall players. That's kind of ridiculous, but at least some players that are known in the community that could give some impact. Even if it, and I'm not saying bring them into the studio and pay them as employees, but just email them or talk to them on Messenger. I'm not even talking about me because I don't really have an online presence. I have my little community that I play with from Facebook, and that's it. I'm talking about the people who like Frothy Omen or people like them who get a lot of recognition on YouTube. Just people who have a credible and well heard voice. Get them involved. Anyway, I'm not gonna ramble on about that, but moving on to map design. The map design was interesting in this game, and not in an entirely positive way. It's a game. Titanfall is a game where the maps didn't quite fit with the movement mechanics. They tried, and it did work on some of the maps, like Colony and Angel City, but you have other maps like Fracture and Lagoon, where it just doesn't really fit at all with the movement system. And that's disappointing. And there aren't really that many. There's a bunch of mediocre maps in the game. There aren't that many great maps, and there aren't that many crappy maps, but I'd rather have a game with half bad maps and half great maps. My personal opinion. And looking at the DLC maps, I wasn't really impressed by them, and I don't know if that's because those were like the Plan B maps, like the ones at the bottom of the list that couldn't make the cut into the core game. But it it worries me for the sequel. That's my number one fear is that the map design won't turn out well. But we'll have to see what happens. Oh, before I move on from map design, I also want to say that they need to smooth out the geometry. I should not be getting hung up on invisible ledges and stuff like that when I'm running on a wall. That's unacceptable. I know the artists do that to make the maps look more visually interesting, but if you need to make a simpler, cleaner map at the expense of aesthetics, I say go for it. Make the game play better. Let's see. Next up on my little list here, I have game modes. This is another place where Titanfall failed. And one of the reasons why it didn't have that much longevity. There weren't a lot of game modes, either casual, just for funsies game modes, or competitive game modes. You didn't have an infected mode like like the zombie, like zombies in Halo, or infected in Halo, or zombies in Call of Duty. You didn't have gun game, and I'm not saying it has to have these in particular, but there just weren't any like just for fun game modes. Like I think a Kraber only game mode or charge rifle only or something like that would have been fun for this game. But they didn't have anything like that. So, and that's okay if you don't want to go the casual route and you want to focus on just a competitive route. You have to have more competitive game modes. And for this game, it's basically just capture the flag and last Titan standing. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because I know a lot of people play other game modes that are not those, but a hardpoint doesn't really work well. In a game about movement, you shouldn't have to be camping at an objective. Attrition works okay, and a lot of people are going to disagree with me and just say attrition's bad just because it's where a lot of newer players play, but I mean it's better than Pilot Hunter. Pilot Hunter is horrible in Titanfall. I can't think of a worse shooter for having just a pilot, just a Slayer only game mode. It just doesn't work in Titanfall. The maps are too big. It's too hard to identify where players are. Too easy to camp in corners. Oh, excuse me. Just didn't work, and it was to the game's detriment. I think Mark for Death could have been competitive if it came out sooner with the core game, but we'll never know. And lastly is competitive support. Now this is more for me personally, but not the player base as a whole. But there wasn't really any competitive support. Now I have heard from interviews and stuff that they are going to be supporting competitive Titanfall a little bit more, which is nice. Because not shipping the game with private matches really hurt it. And it's a damn shame because at a competitive, if there were a few more good maps and a few more good game modes for Titanfall and complete and private matches at the start, we could have had a real winner here. Could have had a real winner. So, and the system they have now is not really a ranked play. It's not a ranked playlist. It's just basically it's just saying if you're Diamond 5, you can pub stomp the hardest out of anybody who plays the game. And that's not really what ranked should be. It should be about, okay, if you have players of equal skill, two teams of equal skill, one's going to win, and that'll show that one's a little bit better than the other one, and then you keep doing that until you figure out who the best players are. It should be about winning, not about, getting a certain number of kills. Now, I know it sounds like I've been really negative on the game, but it's out of love, because I love the game. Like I said, the shooting and the movement mechanics are in a league of their own as far as I'm concerned compared to other games in this genre. and I'm really excited for the sequel in 2017. Like I said, I have some trepidations, but overall, I think it's going to be fun. Uh, and that's pretty much it. Titanfall, it was a good run, but other games are on the horizon, and I need something a little bit fresher. All right. Take it easy, everyone.